Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this first plenary, if we don't count the opening ceremony. We're going to have this morning two fantastic conferences from Professor Rita Haverkamp and Professor José Luis Díez-Ripollés. And I will go right into it and introduce briefly Rita Haverkamp. She's an appointed professor of crime prevention and risk management at the Eberhard Karls University of Tübingen since 2013, and her research interests focus mainly on crime prevention, security research, terrorism, human trafficking, youth penal law, electronic monitoring, system of sanctions in criminal law, comparative criminal law, penal system, and refugees. She has participated and directed many research projects from the Federal Ministry of Education and Research in Germany, and the most recent ones being two of them about safety in the main station district, and her current project, Legitimation Change in Case of Emergency, on the basis of the program Research for Civil Security, which is active since 2022. She has, of course, many publications and editorships, the most recently about the rule of law and the European Union, mental health issues and the defendant and detainees, human trafficking, the overuse of the criminal justice system in Germany, among many others. She is also part of several advisory committees, many of them related to crime prevention and the fight against extremism at local level. But she's also a member of the Research Advisory Board of the Federal Criminal Police Office. She's part of the Advisory Committee of the Center Against Extremism, and she has been a member of the Research Advisory Board of the National Center for Crime Prevention until 2022. She is also a member of the Project Advisory Board in the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and she's a member of the International Penal and Penitentiary Foundation since 2016. So please welcome Professor Rita Habekamp.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Dear organizers, I would like to thank you very much for your invitation. It's an honor to speak to you. Dear colleagues and friends, there are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fishes swim in for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over to the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" My thanks for this opening go to the late David Foster Wallace's Great Canyon commencement address, "This is Water," in May 2005. The fish story is twofold. First, essential realities may be unrecognized and overlooked. This reflects the social constructivist character of our perception. Even the seemingly self-evident appears non-existent. Second, the experience advantage of older generations seems obvious. However, this experience advantage is deceptive in the digital world. While old fish might feel lost in digital waters and unable to find their way around, young fish, as digital natives, enjoy themselves to the full. However, off and online waters are not separate. Rather, they complement each other. Fish meet in physical and virtual waters in two realities which advance through a hybrid social communication practice. What awaits you? Before going into criminology and digitality, it makes sense to ponder about how contemporary communication between human beings is functioning. The focus lies not only on virtual communication, but also on the intertwining of the on- and offline world. In virtual communication, it's not always obvious with whom one is communicating. Machines are playing an increasingly important role on the internet. Digitality creates both distance and closeness. This apparent contradiction dissolves as a relationship of trust might be built despite spatial separation and distance. Wrongdoers exploit and abuse this relationship of trust. The anonymity makes it possible to conduct criminal business. This raises the question of how digital crime differs from traditional crime. What are the limits of existing crime theories? Or regarding the methods, what's new? What's possible? While in the early years, the internet was considered a medium for an open and free infrastructure for information and communication, Commercialization and, in authoritarian states, surveillance through blocking changed the possibilities to access the internet. Many social media open access by simply registering for the platform. In return, they demand the sharing of personal data for their business model. Data are big business. We live in a big data society. However, a main feature of the digital world is its multidimensional hyperconnectivity between individuals, institutions, and economic companies. Communication ranges from fleeting encounters to firm and lasting bonds, even without having met face to face. Many network for several reasons: private, professional, or topic specific. Campaigns and debates on socially relevant topics are initiated and repeatedly conducted in a highly emotional and hostile manner. These initiatives raise or sharpen awareness and can also bring about change in the state and society. However, trolls use fake identities and frequently interfere in a negative way. They deliberately provoke, disrupt, and insult in online forums or blogs. Trolls might capture hashtags to make debates difficult or even impossible. State-employed trolls try to manipulate the virtual public for the purposes of state propaganda. Blogging contributes one's own content to the public sphere of the internet. This participation enables multiple networks within the framework of a blogosphere of interlinked blogs. In contrast, echo chambers are social spaces in which people only mirror the same opinion without being confronted with other opinions and thus shut themselves off from others. Filter bubbles might enhance echo chamber effects. They can enhance the echo chamber effect by users themselves, or more importantly, algorithm selecting and sorting information tailored to the individual. Organized criminal groups use the internet in different ways to facilitate communication among themselves and to potential victims, to expand their outreach scope and to improve the efficiency of criminal markets. Digital tools increasingly support the criminal activities. According to Bruno Latour's actor network theory, things also engage as actors with human actors in digital networks. Apart from false identities of human users, we interact without knowing more and more with inanimate objects and software agents like applications on smartphones. Bots are extremely common nowadays. Bots, short for software robots, are computer programs based on algorithms. Social bots simulate human behavior. Several can interact with each other and form a botnet unnoticeable for human users. They attempt to influence the digital public by three main strategies. First, smoke screening to distract the users from the main point. Second, misdirecting by not referring to the topic at all. And third, astroturfing to create the impression that a huge majority has a strong opinion. Research on the impact of social bots is still in its infancy, though first results confirm effects on, for example, democracy, distorted popularity, and digital crime. The actor networks theory is used to describe new forms of hybrid crime organized, committed by botnets as actors. Such a hybrid criminal network results from cooperation and interaction between human and non-humans. The famous Thomas theorem becomes even more important in this context. If men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. Not only points the Thomas theorem to the actual world, but also within the digital world. Manuel Castells describes a culture of real virtuality based on the concept of a space of flows transcending a space of places. Flows of information, interactions, symbols, etc. proceed from one disconnected position to another, gradually replacing a space of places. Flows are associated with time, thereby creating timeless time. Time in networks is compressed, and everything happens instantaneously. From this, a culture of real virtuality emerges. Such a culture is, so Castell says, a system in which reality itself is entirely captured, fully immersed in a virtual image setting in the world of make-believe, in which appearances are not just on the screen through which experiences is communicated, but they become the experiences. The so-called virtual reality, short VR, corresponds to this and enables the users to experience a virtual 360-degree world with VR glasses. The users can move around and even interact with other individuals in VR. The next step of VR is artificially created 3D worlds in which users can be entirely immersed. In VR, avatars can also engage in criminal activities that are either not punishable as fiction or are punishable, for example, due to national laws against child pornography. The culture of real virtuality supplements the physical space with its face-to-face encounters, whereby the two realities converge into a new hybrid social communication practice. In augmented reality, short AR, the physical world is enriched with virtual content. AR may assist to orientate in unknown places by displaying additional, in particular commercial, information through text, graphics, animations, or videos. One prominent example of AR is the game Pokemon Go. Pokemon are virtual objects in all sorts of places in the physical world. The gamers can catch them, pit them against, and alongside each other in fights. The future might be a mixed reality based on VR and AR implementations. Mixed reality merges the off and online worlds to create new environments and visualizations. The so-called metaverse is the commercialized vision where digital avatars meet and interact with each other in private and business matters. In December 2021, the first couple in the US got married in the physical world, and simultaneously, the virtual avatars dressed in the same wedding outfits mimicked the motions of the vows in the metaverse. Australian researchers used VR simulated crime scenes to bring the jury to the scene of crime. They found that the verdict was more consistent with VR than that based on photos. Participants in the simulated scene were more likely to correctly remember the details, whereas participants with photos had difficulties to visualize the scene. While AR has reached the masses, VR and mixed reality are struggling despite their growth in recent years. The VR headset can affect the physical well-being, such as headaches, nausea, and drowsiness. This unpleasant effect impairs the joyful experience of the virtual world. Thus, persons affected by motion sickness do not perceive the VR headset as an extension of themselves. According to Marshall McLuhan, media are extensions of men. They serve as extensions of the human senses and the human body. Smartphones, as multifunctional devices, have quickly caught billions of users. The lightweight devices are easily portable and always in reach of its owner. We are accustomed to look, tap, swipe at our smartphones, sitting, standing, or walking in different situations, in every conceivable place. Most of the users can't imagine a life without their smartphone, as the device belongs to their daily routines. McLuhan already recognized that the medium could shape its users. Logan sharpened this for digital media in the following way. There's a flip or reversal in which the human users of digital media become an extension of those digital media as these media scoop up their data and use them to the advantage of those that control this media. The loss of privacy happens almost imperceptibly and means a gain in convenience when the data is collected and personalized by the operator, which saves tiresome searching. However, users do not know to whom their data is sold, by whom their data is used, and how. Black hat hackers repeatedly exploit security gaps and turn captured data sets into money. It's well known that the use of digital media implies a range of different security threats. Let us turn to criminology. The anonymity of the internet provides with a broad field for wrongdoing. Digital crime, still more often called cybercrime, can be classified in three categories: digital dependent, digital enabled, and digital assisted crimes. Digital dependent crimes are understood as offenses that can be only committed in the online world by using computers, computer networks, or other forms of information and communication technology. These offenses are primarily directed against computers or network resources. They include the creation and spreading of viruses and other malware, black hat hacking, and distributed denial of service attacks. In the gaming scene, players have long been affected by the hacking of their accounts. This is often a nightmare for them. Several years of playtime with hard-earned or purchased items and several characters at maximum level are gone. On part of the offenders, their motives are manifold, mainly personal profit and financial gain, but also protest, intellectual curiosity, revenge, and even boredom. These crimes are more technical in nature. Technological advances in artificial intelligence, short AI, and in robotics suggest that digital crime will be more shaped by self-learning systems in the future. Digital-enabled crimes consist of traditional crimes that have originally been independent of the internet. Nowadays, certain types can be much easier committed using the internet and have been transformed in scale or form. The spectrum is countless. Economic-related cybercrime like fraud, virtual marketplaces for illegal goods, malicious and offensive communications like cyberbullying, offenses against specific individuals such as cyberstalking, and child sexual offenses such as cyber grooming. Not only the use of AI is increasing among cyber-dependent, but also among cyber-enabled crimes. IT-savvy offenders can develop these. This rhizomatic structure is reflected on the one hand in the connectivity of the criminals and on the other hand in a kind of shadow internet. For example, black hat hackers engage in cybercrime operations in asymmetrical and heterogeneous structures. They act alone or in loose, leaderless, and non-hierarchical assemblages. They may morph, rupture, and grow. On the shadow internet, illicit online marketplaces come and go. When the police close one and arrest its runners, the next marketplace pops up, run by someone else. The development indicates that more and more actors will perpetrate cyber acts controlled in the background by one or several offenders. This raises questions of whether self-learning IA will be able to escape the control of the creators in the future, and who is responsible for the offense. While the rhizomatic structure can be found throughout the internet in various contexts, the physical world seems to remain almost untouched by it at first glance. However, the rhizome reaches into the physical world. One prominent example in Germany is the case of the former YouTuber Dragonlord, who provoked his audience and earned many haters. The digital hate entered his physical world and ruined his actual life. Due to threats and assaults, he's run without a fixed abode. The physical hunt, declared to be a so-called dragon game, has continued and has been orchestrated in the digital sphere. From this perspective, the virtual and real world sounds outdated and artificial, especially since in our digital society, no one, even those not connected to the web, can avoid the influences of the digital. How do theories of crime change in the wake of the digital society? In studies on digital crime, some reluctance to apply or adapt crime theories might explain certain aspects of specific digital crimes. In contrast to the general theories of crime, Karupanan Jaishankar's space transition theory is a digital crime theory. According to him, space transition theory explains the nature of the behavior of the persons who bring out their conforming and non-conforming behavior in the physical space and virtual space. Space transition involves movement of the person from one space to another. Space transition theory argues that people behave differently when they move from one space to another. The theory comprises 7 postulates. The first 2 postulates are linked to anonymity. Anonymity is essential for digital offenders who would otherwise obey the laws due to their position or status, as well as for offenders with a flexible identity. According to the third postulate, offline offenses are transferred to the digital and vice versa. The fourth postulate is associated with timeless space that facilitates the chance to escape. The fifth postulate consists of 2 assertions. Strangers online are more likely to join to commit crimes offline, but offline-only associates are more inclined to do so online. Giving the sixth postulate, individuals from a closed society are more prone to digital crimes than those from open societies, because persons from that digital crimes are supported through the conflict of norms and values between the offline and online space. The merit of the theory is that the interactions between the digital and physical world are considered, and the characteristics of the web are included. Initial findings partially confirm some postulates, but more research is needed. In my view, the lack of physical contact combined with the anonymity is an invitation to break rules and perceive breaking rules as less serious in the digital context. The psychological harm and deprivation could be even higher than in comparable cases offline. For example, offline insults do not develop such a strong impact in the physical world. The immense reach and persistence of revenge porn, hate, or cyberbullying are still underestimated, often in the criminal justice system. Besides, the further development of mixed reality, botnets, and AI pose challenges for criminology, which are partially captured by the items cybercrime and hybrid criminal networks. The digital and physical waters blur and merge. The fish covering there are joined by artificially created but also disguised fish, which might turn out to be predators. The predator fish have expanded and refined their hunting methods. They use new, old, and hybrid methods to catch prey. This reveals the omnipresence of the digital. Accordingly, a criminology of the digital imposes itself. While the focus was initially on the online, the view has broadened to include the interplay between virtual and physical waters. In this context, criminology can show its strength, namely its interdisciplinarity. Not only computer sciences are relevant, but also a broader perspective on digitalization, its technological progress, think of the advances in AI, and globalization. The further development of the digital society and its consequences for the individual are important as background and understanding for digital criminology. My brief insight into the social transformation through the digital and the accompanying changes in crime and victimization in both worlds, unfortunately, only gives a small glimpse of the digital relevance in criminology. The influence of the tech giants on the communication and information technology of users, also from a criminological perspective, was largely left out. States and surveillance mechanisms were likewise not addressed. In the light of increasing subtle surveillance, the research topic embedded in surveillance studies is an important issue for criminology. The Internet of Things enables police and law enforcement to access sensitive personal data. Just think of smart home devices in a way that is relevant under criminal law. Accident reporting systems of cars can be used to extract data on hit-and-run accidents. Menstrual cycle apps allow conclusions to be drawn about a pregnancy and a prohibited abortion. Regarding police and criminal justice, we observe that AI is moving into the entire criminal procedure, notably predictive policing and sentencing at courts. The digital is also taking hold in criminological research. For example, the Virtual Berkeley project by the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Crime, Security and Law uses VR versions of residential neighborhoods to study the behavior of burglars. Digital criminology faces several challenges in the future. Criminology must critically reflect and analyze the changes in society and the instances of social control and criminal justice brought by digitality. Criminology must conduct more empirical as well as theory-based and theory-developing research in relation to offenders, victims, and instances of social control and law enforcement. Criminology must itself apply information and communication technology in its research. To sum up, criminology is challenged with a broad and demanding field of research that claims its place in traditional criminology. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor. May I remind you that we are broadcasting this through YouTube, and that means that the users that are in YouTube can also make questions through the chat. And we will do that at the end of the session after Professor Díez-Ripollés' conference. So let me briefly introduce Professor José Luis Díez-Ripollés. He's a full professor of criminal law in the University of Malaga since 1986. He's the founder and was the director of the Institute of Criminology since its creation in 1990 until 2017. He has been visiting professor at universities from Germany, United States, Finland, and Switzerland, and he's a member of different international academic associations. He is currently the vice president of the International Penal and Penitentiary Foundation since 2014. He's the co-founder here in Spain of the think tank focused on hot criminal issues formed by law professors, judges, magistrates, and prosecutors. He is Doctor Honoris Causa from various universities and awarded in different occasions, one of them with the award Rafael Salillas of the Spanish Society of Criminology for prestigious criminologists. His publications predominantly focused on criminal policy, criminal law, criminal lawmaking, and criminology in issues like sexual crimes, abortion, euthanasia, drugs, money laundering, urban planning, corruption, new models of criminal justice policy, comparative criminal justice policy, rationality in criminal lawmaking, video surveillance for preventing crimes, corporate criminal liability, or gender violence, among others. He also has a reference handbook of criminal law, general part, which is in its 5th edition. So please join me in welcoming Professor José Luis Díaz-Ripollés.
Good morning, dear college. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to intervene in a plenary session of an ESC conference, even more if the conference is taking place at my university. Of course, I cannot start my presentation without first saying the great satisfaction all members of the Institute of Criminology are experiencing for such magnificent acceptance the Congress has got, and appreciate the kind words José Becerra has expressed about me. Comparative criminal justice policy shows a strong tendency to compare different national crime control systems according to their higher or lower level of punitiveness. However, using the level of punitiveness achieved for the respective crime control system as guiding principle has several theoretical and methodological shortcomings. Among the former, we should note that the goal of punitive moderation places itself in a scan ideological context. It represents a humanitarian approach to criminal policy, regardless of the set of criminal policy goals pursued and the criminal justice model adopted. Concerning methodological shortcomings, it is highlighted that almost all comparisons are built basically around the incarceration rate per 100,000 inhabitants. Nevertheless, the fact of focusing the evaluation of the punitiveness of a criminal justice system on the use of imprisonment marginalizes other indicators with a strong explanatory capacity. The proposal described in this presentation advocates for an international criminal policy comparison based on a more enriched and comprehensive approach with the use of an organized diversity of indicators. The theoretical model adopted to design this research chooses as comparison element the level to which the different crime control systems minimize the social exclusion of those coming into conflict with the criminal law. This theoretical model does not refer to the effects of the crime control system on the overall population. It confines itself to those individuals and groups who are priority targets of criminal prevention and prosecution bodies, namely those who have been, are, or are likely to be subjected to crime control as suspects, defendants, offenders, or ex-offenders. The search for either social inclusion or social exclusion of those individuals reflects two contrasting approaches to the criminal policy goal of preventing crime. The socially exclusionary approach is essentially aimed to ensure that suspects, defendants, offenders, or ex-offenders, after their contact with penal institutions, find themselves in individual and social conditions where it will be more difficult for them to break the law or to avoid being discovered. Conversely, the social inclusive approach seeks, above all, that suspects, defendants, offenders and ex-offenders, after their contact with penal institutions, find themselves in the same or better individual and social conditions in order to voluntarily lead a law-abiding life. Our research intends to measure the longer or shorter distance of the diverse crime control systems with respect to a strict socially exclusionary approach. The measurement instrument must consist of a set of indicators for measuring the level to which the different national criminal justice systems produce socially exclusionary effects on the referred groups. Such indicators must have following features. First, they will refer to actual punitive rules and practices effectively applied in Western developed countries. Second, these punitive rules and practices must show a solid capability to measure significant socially exclusionary effects on the target groups. Third, the chosen set of indicators will reflect the reality of the criminal policy model in their respective countries. In this regard, the theoretical model identifies 9 major areas of penal intervention, especially adequate to reveal relevant exclusionary effects that, as a whole, offer a comprehensive picture of the corresponding criminal justice system. The 9 pools are control of public spaces, legal safeguards, sentencing and sanction systems, harshest penalties, prison rules, preventive intervention, legal and social status of offenders and ex-offenders, police and criminal records, and youth criminal justice. All the indicators must be incorporated into one of these pools. 4, the indicators will have discriminating capacity. That is to say, they will show relevant variations among the different criminal justice systems in the Western developed countries. And 5th, the instrument will be built on the agreement existing among leading experts from different Western developed countries. The intention is not to verify empirically by means of fieldwork that such punitive rules and practices effectively generate social exclusion. Such verification is replaced here by the validation through a broad consensus of experts. The measurement instrument must consist of a set of indicators for measuring the levels to which the different national criminal justice systems produce socially exclusionary effects on the referred groups. A research team made up by 19 experts in criminal policy, penal law, or criminology belonging to the University of Malaga identified a set of punitive rules and practices that they consider produce greater effects of social exclusion on the target groups. The result of such work was the identification of 278 punitive rules and practices distributed among the 9 pools. Subsequently, a coordinating team assesses each item using the following 5 criteria: completeness, extension, ease of access, discrimination capacity, and clarity. As a result, 126 items in total were chosen, distributed in a homogeneous manner among the 9 pools. Then, we have to determine the criteria for the selection of experts that must validate the instrument. The selection guidelines were the following. First, the experts must carry out their professional career in Western developed countries, covering altogether 5 geographical areas. Second, The expert must be involved in the fields of criminal justice policy, penal law, or criminology, and have an over 10 years experience in academic or professional activities. And third, a moderate balance between academic and professionals, men and women, and different ideological orientations should exist. Finally, the selection of experts materialized in the effective participation of 96 experts from 18 countries in the validation of the questionnaire. Next, the coordinating team approved the design of the questionnaire for validation of the 126 items initially selected. The validation of the questionnaire will be accomplished after going through 2 rounds of examinations by experts. In the first round, each expert will handle 1/3 of the items included in the initial questionnaire. The questions made about the items shall be 2. The first refers to the clarity of the corresponding item. The second will be on the suitability of the punitive rule of practice to generate social exclusion to the target groups. In the second round, those items that pass the validation criteria of the first round shall be submitted for validation to the second group of experts. The questions to be replied will be no longer 2, but 3. A third one will be added, inquiring on the appropriateness of including the corresponding item into a specific pool. In the first round, we got a response rate of 84.5% out of the total number of questionnaires sent. Then, we performed an analysis of them through an interjudge reliability statistical test consisting of Aiken's V coefficient for validation. All those items with a coefficient lower than 0.70 were deemed not validated. In principle, this resulted in 81 items validated for suitability. However, the research team made the decision of reducing the number of the questionnaire items with the aim of improving the operability of the instrument, and it was made following certain criteria I have no time to explain now. The result was a questionnaire with 65 items for the second round. In the second round, we got a very high response rate, 92.8%, and after discarding all items with values lower than 0.70 in Aiken's V coefficient for suitability and appropriateness, we obtained as a result a questionnaire made up by 55 items. Yet, the number of validated items was excessive for implementation purposes. It was therefore decided that the whole team would carry out a new review of those 55 items by applying certain criteria. Again, I have no time to explain those criteria. A final agreement was reached regarding the RIMAS instrument that consists of 39 items, including 26 rules and 13 practices, and a number of items ranging between 4 and 5 within each pool. Subsequently, modifications were made concerning 2 items. Both cases tried to counteract the difficulty of access to practices 110 and 52. Finally, the latest version of the instrument has 28 rules and 11 practices. You can see in the next 3 slides the 9 pools with all the items. Of course, you have not time to see them carefully. Please, you can see there in this and other following slides a QR code where you can get the whole instrument if you like it for following much better the next slides. This is the first 3 pools. Here are the next 3. And here are the last ones. You have also the web page where you can see also the list of all the experts who participated in the validation. Up to now, RIME's instrument has been applied to 5 European nations: England and Wales, Germany, Italy, Poland and Spain, and 2 US states, California and New York. The application of the instrument has been carried out by a team mostly built on scholars who have already conducted the process of building and validating the instrument. The application of the instrument in Spain served as a pilot study. This first experience served to introduce slight modifications in the application of the instrument to the other 6 jurisdictions. For countries other than Spain, because we are in Spain, we are Spanish and we know better the Spanish system, for countries other than Spain, 1 or 2 national advisors were available to the researchers. Besides, once RIMES was fully applied to a country, a national expert checked if the method for responding all the items was reliable enough and the interpretation of the results well-founded. Let us give first some general information before delving into more detailed results. The response rate to the items have been very high, 99.6%. The research team has been able to answer all the items of all countries, 272 answers, except for item 81 of Italy. All countries have answered in the affirmative more than 1/5 of the items reflecting social exclusion, some of them reaching almost 70% of all of them. The weighted results also reflect this fact. A facts overview shows a clear distinction between Anglo-Saxon jurisdictions at the bottom of the table and the rest of European nations. Let's quit this slide about the differences in the responses between real and practices, and we go to the next one. We should ask ourselves about the discriminatory power of RIMES. Top left. 2 items have been answered in the affirmative by all countries, and 4 items have been responded in the negative for all countries. It means that 50% of all items have not been able to show, up to now, their discriminating capacity. Our purpose is to reevaluate the discriminating capacity of each item after the future application of the instrument to 12 additional jurisdictions. Top right. Another way of assessing the discrimination power is to check whether the answers collected from the 7 jurisdictions to the set of items belonging to each pool are evenly distributed between positive and negative responses. The conclusion is encouraging. The percentage distribution of negative or positive responses is approximately found in all but one of the pools within the interval between 60 and 40%. Only pool 2 shows a more unequal percentage distribution of positive and negative responses. Therefore, the pools chosen are relevant for bringing to light the differences in social exclusion generated by different crime control systems. Bottom left. Concerning the discrimination by countries, 2 problems could appear. First, the instrument would tend to place all countries very close to one of the instrument's maximum or minimum values. Second, it would group almost all countries in values very close to each other. None of these problems has happened. There is enough room for other countries with values higher or lower than those obtained by the countries studied, and these countries are spread along the scale in a wide range between 2.3 in Spain and 6.9 in California and New York. We are going to proceed now to an analysis by pools. Pool 1. High values predominate in this pool, with New York and England and Wales reaching the highest value. Practice of item 11, discriminatory street police intervention, is responded in the affirmative in all jurisdictions but Poland. The prevalence of the rest of the items remains at the middle level. Pool 2. All countries score low in this pool, especially Germany. Practice of item 25, sorry, I would like to say the other way around. Germany got the highest value, even in a low value, standing in a low value. Practice of item 25, mentally ill inmates, reaches a high prevalence, and rules of items 21 and 22 do not exist in any of the studied countries. Pool 3, California stands out, and in contrast, Germany and Poland score low, standing the rest of jurisdictions at an intermediate level. In this pool, the two practices, items 37, incarceration rate, and 38, closed prisons, have a high prevalence, meeting all countries, item 38. No country scores in item 33. Sorry, I was in another slide, huh? Okay. I think I go back, eh? This is now. Okay. Sorry. Pool 4, harshest penalties. The scores in this pool are moderate, except for Germany. Item 46, time before release from life imprisonment, is responded in the affirmative by all countries but Germany. Pool 5, prison rules. There is a clear divide between the highest scores obtained by Anglo-Saxon countries and the lowest scores of the other European countries. Again, a practice, item 68, concerning intimate visits in prison shows a high prevalence against the lower prevalence of the rules. Pool 6, high moderate values predominate in this pool. While the items referring to preventive detention show a moderate prevalence, the two items referring to pretrial detention give results that are totally opposed to each other, with none of the countries meeting item 82 and all countries meeting item 79. Pool 7. The scores in this pool are moderate in more than half of the countries, with New York and England and Wales leading the scoring in a tie. Deportation of legal resident aliens, even for minor offenses, and to a lesser extent, disqualification from certain jobs unrelated to the crime are the most prevalent items. No country deprives of welfare benefits just for having been sentenced to imprisonment. Pool 8. The values in this pool are high to moderate, with two countries meeting all items. Only Italy deviates from the norm. Of the four constituent items of the pool, two of them, Rule 99, handing out of criminal records to employers, and Practice 107, media disclosure of ex-felons' particulars, are met in all but one country. And Pool 9. The countries in this pool obtain quite differentiated scores. The Anglo-Saxon countries are in the lead, and all items have a relevant prevalence, with items 117, serious custodial sanctions, and 120, persistence of minors' criminal records, which are norms, standing out. Okay, now we move to the analysis of the scores obtained by each country in the different pools. Spain is the country with the lowest score of all the jurisdictions studied. Only Pool 8, which refers to police and criminal records, is just over half of the score that can be obtained. We should remind that Spain is the only country where more practices than rules are met, which says something positive about criminal justice in books, but not so much in action. Italy has the second lowest RIMES score of all the countries studied so far, although closer to Germany and Poland than to Spain. As a result, 4 pools exceed half of the obtainable score. We could say that their higher levels are concentrated mainly in penal interventions outside the core of criminal law. Pools 1, control of public spaces, 6, preventive intervention, and 9, youth criminal justice. Like Italy, in Poland, 4 pools exceed half of the score that can be obtained, but one more pool is close to that value. The system of penalties, pools 3 and 4, as well as penal interventions based on the belief in the persistence of the offender's dangerousness, pools 6, 7, and 8, mainly explain the moderate level of social exclusion obtained. In Germany, 4 pools exceed half of the score that can be obtained, and 2 more pools are close to that value. In general terms, Germany offers an image of moderate intensity with respect to social exclusion, developing its best non-exclusionary yielding in the fields of the sentencing and sanction system, as well as in the enforcement of prison sentences. In England and Wales, RIMES begins to give results that are notably different from those of the preceding countries. 6 of the 9 pools are above the mean value of the scale, and the others are very close to it. It's difficult to establish a distinctive pattern according to the various pools, apart from the low score obtained in pool 2, legal safeguards. However, the values obtained in 2 pools that do not affect the core of criminal intervention, those of pools 1, control of public spaces, and 9, youth criminal justice, stand out. California has 2 pools in the bottom half of the scale. The rest of the pools show high values, with 2 pools reaching the highest possible score. This US state is a highly socially exclusionary jurisdiction. Notwithstanding this general consideration, some pools that profoundly affect individual rights, such as pools 1, legal safeguards, and 7, legal and social status of offenders and ex-offenders, obtain notably lower scores. New York becomes the most exclusionary jurisdiction of all those studies so far. It is its strict reaction to convicted offenders, as well as the harshness of its juvenile justice system and the tight control of public spaces that largely explain its high values in social exclusion. Let us now locate the different study countries in a scale in accordance to the RIMES overall results. None of the countries studied are at the extreme ends of the scale. This is an acceptable result, which should be compared in the future with the results obtained by the new jurisdictions to which RIMES will be applied. However, RIMES has shown outstanding differences between the countries studied, which means that the main objective of the comparison instrument has been achieved. The US states analyzed are clearly more socially exclusive than any of the European nations studied. Furthermore, the Anglo-Saxon jurisdictions, which includes England and Wales, along with the 2 US states, are palpably more socially exclusive than the continental European countries under study. It is also worth noting that most of the continental European countries studied obtain very close scores, except for Spain. Likewise, the 2 Mediterranean European countries show the lowest values for social exclusion, although Italy is not too far away from the 2 Central European countries. A final question remains, and I am finishing. Is it worth the creation and application of a measurement scale as complex as the RIMES is to compare national penal systems if equivalent comparative results are achieved with other simpler measurement instruments, particularly those that are limited to comparing the punitiveness of different penal systems? Is enough to analyze the punitiveness? one can answer first that even if this were so, the Rimas instrument chooses for comparison a more substantial and ideological consistent dimension than mere punitiveness. Moreover, it provides incomparably richer and more useful information about the topic. But we can also answer the question directly, by saying that the results obtained in Rimas differ significantly in several of the countries studied from those that would have been obtained if only punitiveness had been considered. A first approximation to this conclusion can be obtained by comparing the results obtained by the different countries in two of the Rimas pools that largely measure punitiveness, pools 3 and 4, with the results obtained by these same countries on the global Rimas scale. We can see that there are two jurisdictions, New York and Germany, which obtain markedly lower values in the average of pools 3 and 4 than in the final score of the Rimas instrument. Specifically, New York goes from scoring 4.4 in the two pools to 6.9 in the final score, moving from 5th place on punitiveness to 1st place on a scale of higher to lower social exclusion. Even more striking is the case of Germany, which scored 0.99 in the two pools and goes to, while it scores 4.13 in the overall Rimas score, moving from 7th and last place on punitiveness to 4th place on the scale of higher to lower social exclusion. I have not much time to explain all the conclusions, so I am going to jump to the last slide. Rimas will be applied in the coming years to new European jurisdictions: France, Romania, Portugal, and Finland, as well as to Texas and Florida in the United States. In addition, the Rimas instrument has already been applied exploratorily to 3 South American countries: Chile, Peru, and Colombia, and will be applied to 3 others: Argentina, Brazil, and Ecuador. Our ultimate goal is to promote better national crime policies. The relevant information provided by Rimas brings to light the crime control policies of the various countries, monitoring the extent of socially exclusionary criminal interventions, and situating countries within a global social exclusion scale. All this information is very valuable for the design of new criminal policies that are less exclusionary for the target groups of the criminal intervention. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor José Luis Díaz Tripolles. We will be taking questions now. We have a few minutes left. Any questions? No one? There's a question over there, right up, on the last row, yes. The microphone is coming to you.
Thank you very much for this super interesting presentation. I basically have a question on the follow-up research on the RIMES criteria. So I've been looking also into the publications on this, and I was wondering whether in the meantime you're also envisaging extending the application of the RIMES criteria to other countries, and what research is ongoing to apply these criteria to other countries than the one in the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, we have validated the, thank you very much for the question. We have validated the instrument thinking in the Western developed countries. And looking for such purpose, we choose the experts, the almost 100 experts we use from 18 jurisdictions from the Western developed countries. So in principle, we can accept that these items and the criteria for choosing these items and no other items have been validated for all this community of experts belonging to these Western developed countries. And we are intending to continue to apply this instrument there. You have seen that in the end, I have explained also that we are applying the instrument to some South American countries. Okay, in this case, we are only doing an exploratory analysis of RIMES works in these countries and in their conditions. The conclusions are encouraging, but I haven't explained anything about it because I cannot give detailed conclusions so far.
Any more questions? Down here? Down here on the first row.
Okay, yes. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed your presentation, Jose Luis. Of course, I have been following the project from the very beginning, so it was very interesting to see the results today. So I think it's really very interesting. My question was that when you presented the final picture, if I saw it correctly, I finally thought it was a similar picture as the one you would get with incarceration rates. You know, it was like California, New York, Poland, Germany, except for Spain. And this is my question. If you have some hypotheses of why incarceration rates for Spain would be at the top, but in the exclusion, non-inclusion is on the low. Yeah? Thank you very much.
You want to know the explanation about Spain exclusively? So you say that the incarceration rate and the final results, the overall results, are the same. Yes, this is the case in some countries, but this is not the case in other countries, as I showed you in one of the last slides. So I agree, and this is a good point, that the incarceration rate is a very good indicator, but we cannot limit ourselves to use this indicator, because in some countries, and I have shown the case of New York and Germany, it doesn't work. Okay, it works, but it gives a misrepresentation of what is social exclusion in these countries. So our endeavor is to make national criminal justice policy comparisons more complexer, in order to analyze other fields of interventions which can be very socially exclusionary, and they are put apart when you focus all your attention on incarceration rate. But having said that, I don't know if Tapio Lapis-Sepere is here, but I have discussed with him very often about this question. The incarceration rate is a good indicator, but this is a too simple indicator for representing the whole system of criminal justice of a country. That's my point. Okay, Pepe tells me that I didn't answer your question. Okay. I have not answered to your question. It's very interesting to know that Spain, in all this field of intervention, in the end has a very low score, but we have a high incarceration rate. But I would say that our incarceration rate is not so high as it used to be. And if you put this incarceration rate in comparison, for instance, with the US states or with other England and Wales or other countries, probably it's not correct to say that we have a very high incarceration rate. We had it, that's true, but not anymore. So probably it can partially explain that. But in conclusion, we have not still a serious conclusion about it. As you can imagine, all this instrument, or the application of the instrument, gives thousands of data, and all the team is specializing in different pools, in different countries, to answer all these questions like the one you have put to me now.
Any more questions? Do we have one? Oh, yeah, right. Again, on the last row.
Hi, so this is a question for Rita. I'm not an expert in cybercrime, so this question is just out of curiosity. But I've been reading recently many papers about the differences between the who commit their offenses online versus those who commit their offenses in the real world. But I was interested in knowing whether there's also research about the harm of online victimization and the differences between victimization that occurs in real world. So for example, if I'm a girl that has been a victim of cyberbullying, would I express similar symptoms to a girl exposed to bullying and not cyberbullying? Thank you.
So I hope I understood you correctly. You were asking about research on online victimization and the harm. Is that right? Okay. So it depends on which side of criminology we are looking. When we can talk about critical criminology and also semiology. And when we look at these branches, they focus on the harm, especially on the harm, and also on online victimization, quite often in a theoretical sense, but you also find some research, and it's, well, I'm so sorry that I had such a narrow view, because it's such a wide field, and it's very important of you to mention victimization. And so I said also in the end that victimization can be felt more harmful for the victim, and I think there is more research needed. And I think it's very important when we look at the different branches of criminology to look at what importance harm has in this context. Thank you.
We have one more question here in the middle. Right here. You can pass it on. Okay.
Thank you very much for both presentations. That was extremely inspiring. And though I really got a lot of new ideas and the new information from Rita, I would like to ask Professor, what is the relation between your research and the research and presentation books that were already done by Dinian and Cavadino, which were putting the imprisonment and criminal policy in context to the policy of the country, economic situation of the country. And I was thinking about it, especially that, well, Poland looks so good, but in fact what's happening right now, we've got masses protests in prison because of the changes in the law that are oriented toward actually making changes in a political situation, constitutional situation. Is it possible to get this out of what you are presenting as far as the criminal policy is concerned? So basic and to the beginning of my question, what's the relation between what we got from Dinian and Cavadino criminal policy and imprisonment in context of economy of the political system of the country and what you are giving to us?
Yes, I understood correctly, sorry. Well, I would like to stress that our research focus on 4 groups. These are suspects, defendants, offenders, and ex-offenders. So we are trying to prevent the social exclusion penal intervention makes on these groups. And we think that this is a very important characterization of a whole criminal justice. We are not trying to deal with social exclusion in general, with general policy matters, which can also affect criminal justice policy. We are only describing the criminal justice policy systems according to the effects they cause on these 4 groups. Why? I had not so much time to explain that because we think that from the preventing point of view, if we do not create socially exclusionary effects on these groups, we are going, apart from other reasons, of course, we are going to be more efficacious in prevention of crime.
Okay, time is up, so we will leave it here. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to approach the speakers throughout the conference. Thank you very much.